Jai.
Is it okay?
Yeah, well, good to go. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for welcoming me. Hare Krishna. Sing Jai Radha Madhava, as Ananda Bihari Prabhu says, for humanity at large and for my own benefit. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Janavalabha, Jaya Girivadadari, Jaya Gopi Janavalabha, Jaya Girivadadari, Jaya Jashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Jashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radhamani Dada ki jai, Harinam Sankirtana ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari 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 Bo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukam karoti vachalam bhongam langayate girim. Yakripa tamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam. Thank you all so much for being here and welcoming to this Sangam of Srimad Bhagavatam class. Pray to the feet of everyone here, as well as all of my very gracious teachers and well-wishers and correctors in life. Thank you all so much for being here. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 23, verses. Let's look and see here. I'll go ahead and share my screen for everybody. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 23, entitled The Brahmin's Wives Blessed. So we've been in this chapter for a little while. It's a very beautiful, important chapter. Verses 43 through 46. Okay, let's take a look, shall we? Hare Krishna. The Brahmin's wives bless. Chapter 43 through 44 is there together, 45 and 46. Okay, let's take a look. Nasham dvijati sanskaro nivasho guravapi natapo natma mimangsa nasaucham na kriya subha tatapi hyutama shloke krishna yogeshvare bhakti dridha nachash makam samskara dimatam api. Okay. Translation. These women, meaning the women of the Brahmins, the wives of the Brahmins, have never undergone the purificatory rites of the twice-born classes, nor have they lived as brahmacharis in the ashram of a spiritual master, nor have they executed austerities, speculated on the nature of the self, followed the formalities of cleanliness, or engaged in pious rituals. Nevertheless, they have firm devotion for Lord Krishna, whose glories are chanted by the exalted hymns of the Vedas, and who is the supreme master of all masters of mystic powers. We, on the other hand, have no such devotion for the Lord, although we have executed all these processes. And just going back a little bit, these are the Brahmins speaking here. So the Brahmins are speaking about their wives and coming to that realization. I was just speaking, we were discussing in the Sunday Bhagavad Shravana. I was listening to a really beautiful class, a series of classes by His Grace Radhika Raman Prabhu about the nature of forgiveness, and what it means to offer forgiveness and what it means to receive forgiveness, and examples of that throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Bhagavatam is a great place to find those things because everyone's making mistakes. We normally hear of the Bhagavatam as the story of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his pure devotees, right? We hear the story of the Bhagavatam as the story of Krishna and his pure devotees. And we think of pure devotees as being these perfect living beings that do everything right. But what does it mean to do everything right? What does it mean to be perfect? Doing everything right doesn't mean never making a material mistake. Doing everything right means that in every circumstance, in every mishap along the way, I'm looking for the way in which it's bringing me closer to Krishna. I'm asking the question, how can I turn this into something that's pleasing to Krishna? How can this be used in Krishna's service? Even if it's something embarrassing, even if it's something frustrating, even if it's something that is disappointing to my ego, how can this be used in a way that's bringing me closer to Krishna? Even if it's just simply taking away the layers of my ego and removing the blockages of love so that I could become a softer hearted devotee, right? Isn't that a great way to get rid of grudges? Is just to tell myself, whatever I'm holding on to isn't as important as me becoming a soft-hearted devotee. And so the Bhagavatam is filled with devotees making mistakes. And thus it's filled with devotees who the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam and the glory of the devotees and personalities within Srimad Bhagavatam are not that they're perfect in every material sense, but in that they are perfect in their record of constantly allowing their mistakes to deepen their devotion and bring them closer to Krishna. You look at the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Not perfect. Dhruva Maharaj had a chip on his shoulder. Dhruva Maharaj had something to prove. Dhruva Maharaj was carrying deep childhood wounds from his father and wanted to one-up him. And even after taking darshan of Lord Vishnu, when I think it was his, I don't know if it was his brother or somebody close to him was killed by the Yakshas, and he went on a killing spree and a revenge spree against the Yakshas, and he had to get calmed down again. His anger got the best of him. You know, there's stories of Ajamil, who was born in a devotional, spiritual, Brahminical family, and lost his way, became degraded in his lifestyle, and came to the point of chanting the name of Narayan, not because of any devotion, but just happenstance. His son was named Narayan. And then the Yamadutas came to take him, but the Vishnudutas came to save him. And from that point onward, he had a moment of clarity and was like, oh my God, what have I been doing with my life? And he dedicated himself to the path of devotion. We have so many examples of mistakes and mishaps, from Indra to Gajendra to Durvasa Muni, to Daksha in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam. Daksha cursing Lord Shiva in the yajna that it was being performed because he wasn't properly recognized by Lord Shiva, and therefore his ego got the best of him, and he was humbled. And so there are so many examples of forgiveness in Srimad Bhagavatam, because devotees are constantly making mistakes. But those mistakes, for each of us, we have the opportunity. What do I do when I make a mistake? Do I become so filled with shame that I remove myself from the association of devotees? And do I double down that nothing I did was wrong? Or am I willing to admit, yeah, you know what, I'm not perfect, make mistakes, and let me allow this to just flood Krishna's love into my life? Last class, or a recent class, somebody referenced, and I was reading in this beautiful book, Yoga in the Dark Night of the Soul by Simon Haas, where he talks about a ancient Japanese practice of repairing art, where when something is broken, especially a piece of ceramic, an artistic piece of ceramic is broken, they repair it with a gold powder infused lacquer, so that the cracks actually become an enhanced piece of the art form. And then therefore the broken pieces of something don't depreciate its value, but appreciates the value. And something becomes unique. And he describes that love is the gold lacquer that pours into the broken pieces of our lives when things don't go the way we thought they should. And our brokenness doesn't have to become the weights that carry us down, but it becomes the opportunities in which love can flood into our life. And it can soften our hearts. It can make us more compassionate. And it gives opportunities for Krishna's love to flood into our life. And so sometimes it's in our brokenness that we find Krishna's greatest showing up for us. Not necessarily in the form of answering all the material prayers. It may not come in the form of a cured disease. It may not come in the form of that relationship working out. It may not come in the form of that promotion coming through, or that job coming through, or whatever it may be in my material circumstance. That may or may not happen. Krishna never promises the fulfillment of all our material desires. When Krishna says, declare it boldly, O Arjuna, that my devotee never perishes, Krishna's promise is that he will protect us from the most dangerous type of fear, which is the fear of losing our eternal soul and forgetting him. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings in his beautiful song, Bhuliye Tumare. I believe that's what it is, Bhuliye Tumare, by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Forgetting you, O my Lord, forgetting you. He says this beautiful, beautiful song. And so, Radhika Ramaprabhu gave this beautiful class about of forgiveness, and because the devotees in Bhagavatam are always having this needing to be able to understand, and so the Brahmins themselves here are having this moment of clarity in themselves, of their moment of forgetfulness, their moment of forgetfulness of Krishna, and they're coming to their senses, and they're recognizing the glory of their own wives, the people that were right next to them. And he was appreciating that, who they were. So he says, these women have never undergone the purificatory rites of the twice-born classes, nor have they lived as brahmacharis in the ashram of a spiritual master, nor have they executed austerities, speculated on the nature of the self, followed the formalities of cleanliness, or engaged in pious rituals. Nevertheless, they have firm devotion for Lord Krishna, whose glories are chanted by the exalted hymns of the Vedas, and who is the supreme master of all masters of mystic power. We, on the other hand, have no such devotion for the Lord, although we have executed all these processes. It reminds me of a beautiful, the Bhagavatam and Vedic literatures themselves, there's a lot of repetition. There's a lot of repetition, not for the sake of redundancy, for the sake of deepening. For the sake of deepening. So the Bhagavad Gita itself ends with the verse, Sarva Dharmam Prachaja, Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja, Aham Tum Sarva Papebhyo Mokshishyam Mashuchaha. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna, just surrender unto me and abandon all varieties of dharma and surrender unto me. And so that is the ultimate dharma, is to attain loving devotional service to Krishna. So here we find in this verse that verse, that principle exemplified. That even if you don't undergo the purificatory rites of initiation, and you don't live in an ashram, and you don't performing all these specific austerities, and you're not performing all these rituals, but your heart is coming closer to Krishna in love, then you've achieved something great. And Narada Muni says as much in the very, very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam when he's speaking to his disciple, Vyasadeva. Let me just find, there was one verse. Where is the verse that talks about, here it is. So this is the 5th chapter of the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada Muni is speaking. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental vision by your goodness, the descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. So Narada Muni is encouraging Vyasadeva to speak directly about Krishna and his transcendental pastimes in order to attract the hearts of people away from material ways of thinking and material enjoyment towards Krishna's loving service. And so this idea of detachment. So text 17, one who has forsaken their material occupations to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, yet there is no danger of being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. So one who has forsaken material occupations to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down in an immature stage, yet there is no danger of their being successful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. Krishna makes a very similar instruction in the Bhagavad Gita when he says, Api chat sudaracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadur eva samantavya. I forget the last line. Let's look it up.
Somya vyava sito hisaha.
Thank you very much, my pocket scholar. Bhagavad Gita. Apiche sudirachato bhajate mam ananyabhak sadur eva samantavya samyak vyavisito hisaha. Even if one considers the most abominable action, if they're engaged in devotional service, they're to be considered saintly because they're properly situated in their determination. And Radhika Rampu makes this point that Krishna does not say they are saintly. It doesn't say that they are saintly. Prabhupada says that they should be considered to be saintly. They should be treated as saintly. Because even though they're not perfect in the exterior, interiorly they are striving towards Krishna. That's what it means to be situated in our determination. It doesn't mean that mistakes don't matter and that whatever anybody does, it doesn't matter. We sometimes use it in that way where devotees have some fault and make some mistake, and we say, oh, we shouldn't consider, it doesn't matter, just don't, there's no repercussion, because Krishna says that even if somebody makes a mistake. No, it says if somebody makes a mistake, they should be considered saintly, because they're situated in their determination, which means that there's repentance, which means that there's a sense of humility taking place, which means that there's a sense of wanting reconciliation, not a doubling down on my pride that I did nothing wrong, but that a recognition that, you know what, life is just going to continuously humble me, and I want to just keep throwing myself at Krishna. And therefore, Krishna says in the next verse, what I was saying earlier, they quickly become righteous and attain lasting peace. So they quickly become righteous. They aren't righteous initially because of whatever stumblings are taking place, but then they attain lasting peace. O son of Kuti, declare boldly that my devotee never perishes. So Krishna is talking about that way in which he protects his devotees, not because we, again, back to the verse of Bhagavatam at hand, not because we performed all the externalities perfectly, but because we have executed our devotion. So that's what we talk about when we say the Bhagavatam is a story of Krishna and his pure devotees. What makes us pure in our devotion doesn't necessarily mean that we are perfect in our execution of every step along the way, but that the hallmark of the devotee is that we refuse to leave the shelter of Krishna's feet. We refuse to allow any material challenges or difficulties send us away from Krishna and association with his devotees. Let's read the purport, short purport here. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the husbands were not aware that their wives had occasionally associated with residents of Vrindavan, such as the flower ladies, and had heard about the beauty and qualities of Krishna. The Brahmins were astonished at their wives' loving devotion for Lord Krishna, not realizing that this devotion had developed as a result in hearing and chanting about the Lord and the association of his pure devotees. So that again is the instruction of Narada Muni, right? Back to the fifth chapter of the first canto, when he's encouraging Vyasadeva to show people the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. Krishna says also in the Bhagavad Gita, right, 10th chapter, he says that those who are converse about him in his association. A really, really beautiful verse in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 10:9, I believe it is, 10:9. Let's see. The thoughts of my pure devotees, Makchita Madkata Prana, Bodhayanta Parasparam, Katayantas Chamam Nityam, Tushyanti Charamanti Cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Prabhupada's purport. Pure devotees, whose characteristics are mentioned here, engage themselves fully in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Their minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna. Their talks are solely on the transcendental subjects. The symptoms of the pure devotee are described in this verse specifically. Devotees of the Supreme Lord are 24 hours daily engaged in glorifying the qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna, and they take pleasure in discussing him with other devotees. So this was the sadhana and the practice of the wives of the Brahmanas. It was simply discussing Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's hearing and chanting about Krishna in the association of devotees. And this was the quality that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave of Srila Prabhupada. He said he likes to hear. He likes to hear. And so much of our spiritual life is developing a taste for hearing and chanting. That's our ultimate goal. How much am I developing a taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna? And we get so caught up in so many other ambitions, and we forget that actually the purpose of all of us being here, the purpose of the Bhakti Center existing, the purpose for Radha Muralidhar appearing in Manhattan and Gaur Chandra appearing in Manhattan for us to have their darshan and be engaged in their service, the purpose of us having kirtans every week, the purpose of us engaging in people's service is ultimately for all of us to increase our taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna. Because it's that taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna which will keep us close to his association, that washes away all the misgivings in our heart and awakens us to our true nature. And so we have this tremendous, amazing opportunity to not take it for granted. And the relationships that we build in spiritual life, it's not always going to be with the people that you may materially think would have been your best friends otherwise. That friendships in spiritual life are founded on a much deeper principle. That naturally, yes, we have to find like-minded individuals. That's for sure. That is correct. And at the same time, we have to not be so selective to the extent that we isolate ourselves because I can't find my people. But at the end of the day, it's like a lifeline. It's a lifeline that we are all engaged in a war against Maya. We've all declared battle against our ego and against material nature. And it's a very tall order. And we have to be able to take shelter in each other's association. And we take shelter in that association by coming together to read and hear about Krishna. So when we come together, when we come to Kirtan during the week, when we come to a program, when we come to Bhagavatam class, it's not always just because I feel like it. And it's just like, I just get lifted up so much. Yes, that's there sometimes. And sometimes I'm doing it because it's part of my sadhana to show up and to be in the association of devotees and hear and chant about Krishna. Because I know that if I expose myself to that transcendental vibration in the association of devotees, then Krishna reciprocates in a very, very, very deep way. And one of my favorite purports in the Bhagavad Gita is when Srila Prabhupada, I believe it's in chapter 9, verse 1. Yeah. So in chapter 9, verse 1, Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, and he says that the quality that the quality which qualifies you for understanding spiritual realization is anasuyave. It's your non-enviousness. It's because you're non-enviousness, non-envy. And then Prabhupada says in the purport, as a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme, they become enlightened. This hearing process is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies. Yes, wonderful. So we have this understanding that the messages of Krishna are full of potencies. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis, that your holy name is imbued with so many potencies. And then it goes on, and these potencies can be realized if topics regarding the Supreme Godhead are discussed amongst devotees. This cannot be achieved by the association of mental speculators or academic scholars, for it is realized knowledge. The devotees are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord's service. The Lord understands, and this is the powerful line that's so moving to me. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of a particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness and gives them the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna in the association of devotees. And isn't that the thesis statement of this entire pastime? That we're hearing from the purport by Srila Prabhupada's disciple in the verse that we just read from Bhagavatam, who are quoting Srila Sridhar Swami, one of the original commentators on Srimad Bhagavatam, who's saying that the wives of the Brahmins did not undergo any ritualistic ceremonies of all of these different Brahminical rites of passage, but that they engaged in and not just coming together, but in a non-envious way to hear and be in the association of Krishna's devotees in order to shower their consciousness with the nectar of Shravanam and Kirtanam. And in that mood, we open up our hearts in a deep way. Because what am I aiming for at the end of the day? I just want to soften my heart so that I can come closer to Krishna. And we know that when our hearts soften, like butter, Krishna comes to steal them. And so, again, spiritual life becomes a lot simpler and easier when I am able to focus. My aim is just, how can I soften my heart to become less envious of other people? I become happy. The hallmark of spiritual life is when I start to become happy for other people's spiritual success. knowing that your spiritual success doesn't have to diminish mine in any way, shape, or form. There's plenty of Krishna's love to go around. There's only a limited amount of material recognition to go around. That's true. There's only a limited amount of material prestige to go around. There's only a limited amount of material perks to go around. That's true. And if we're competing for that, then we're missing out on what the gift that Krishna's given us. But there's an unlimited amount of Krishna's love and reciprocation in our life. We just have to know where to look for it. And we have to be looking for it. And so we can't take for granted the association of the devotees that we have around us, and we have to value, and therefore we value devotees so tremendously because you are giving me the chance to hear about Krishna in the association of devotees. And we worship devotees in that regard. Okay, that's verse 43 to 44. Let's look at the next two verses and see what we got here. Doesn't look like these verses have purports, they're just short purposes. Verse 45. Nanusvarta vimudanam brahmatanam grihe haya aho nasmarayam asra gopavakya satam gati. Indeed, infatuated as we are with our household affairs, as we have deviated completely from the real aim of our life. But now, just see how the Lord, through the words of these simple cowherd boys, has reminded us of the ultimate destination of all true transcendentalists. So that's the beautiful service that we perform for each other, is we're reminding each other. We remind each other of the importance of Krishna's love in our life. And so we constantly forget and we get reminded. We constantly forget, we get reminded. Thank you, Krishna, for reminding me. So instead of holding grudges, instead of placing blame on other people for blah, 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 we can think, wow, thank you for reminding me to take shelter of Krishna. Thank you for reminding me to go deeper in my budget and my sadhana. Thank you for reminding me what's really important. Thank you for reminding me that being understood by other people isn't the goal of my life. Thank you for reminding me that being recognized for every little thing I do isn't the goal of my life. Thank you for reminding me that one-upping people and being right. Thank you for reminding me that being right isn't the ultimate goal of my life. Thank you for reminding me that taking shelter of Krishna's names and taking shelter of Krishna's loving service is the ultimate goal of my life. And increasing the taste for my hearing and chanting is ultimately where I'm meant to be, where I need to go. So thank you for giving me that opportunity and for reminding me of the ultimate destination of all true transcendentalists, as is being mentioned here. Last verse that we'll read today. Anyata purna kamasya kaivalyadya pate ishita vyai kim asambir ishayaitad vidambanam. Otherwise, why would the Supreme Controller, whose every desire is already fulfilled and who is the master of liberation and all other transcendental benedictions, enact this pretense with us, who are always to be controlled by him? Purport. Although Lord Krishna is absolute truth, he humbly sent his cowherd boyfriends to beg food from the Brahmins. In so doing, he exposed the Brahmins' foolish arrogance and established the glories of his own transcendental beauty by attracting their very wives to surrender at his lotus feet. So this is here we have this word Ishaya. So beginning of Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, is Ishvara. What's the word? I'm missing it. What's the verse? 5.1 Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Sarvakarana Karanam.
Ishvara Paramakrishna.
Ishvara Paramakrishna. Yes. Ishvara Paramakrishna. Ishvara Paramakrishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Sarvakarana Karnam. Thank you. Yeah, it's from the Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, opening verse of Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Paramakrishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Sarvakarana Karnam. So this Supreme Krishna doesn't need anything from us. It's important for us to remember that. And Srila Prabhupada points that out, and Bhagavad Krishna mentions this is a really, really important part of our devotional practice. At the end of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarva lokore maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantam richati. This is very, very, very important. Krishna says, Bhoktaram yagyatapasam, that I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Sarva loka maheshwaram, the Lord of everything. And suhridam sarva bhutanam, that he is the well-wishing friend of all living entities. And so, for us to recognize that Krishna wants nothing from us, but he wants everything for us. That if we don't keep that mentality, we get very confused in our spiritual life, because we think that God has nothing better to do than to rub our face in the dirt. And we like, what kind of God are we believing in? That this Krishna is Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, Satchit Ananda Vigraha. He's eternal, full of wisdom, and fully self-satisfied. Because his every desire is already fulfilled. He's a master of liberation and all of the transcendental benedictions. So why else would he be doing this other than for my benefit and to bring my heart closer to him? So although the Lord is the absolute truth, he humbly sent his cowherd boyfriends to beg food from the Brahmanas. Although Krishna is the absolute truth, he appears before us in the form of Radha Murlidhar and Sri Gaurachandra. And as we're doing our offerings, whether we're a pujari, or whether we're making garlands, or whether we're doing admin work, or whether we're just coming to programs, or whatever we're doing, it's not because Krishna, we're not, this is an opportunity for us to be able to do service, and we shouldn't take it for granted. We shouldn't take it for granted. And we should make sure that in the process of performing our service, we're keeping the mood of wanting to soften our hearts so that we can increase the taste of our hearing and chanting. Okay, that's enough for me. Hare Krishna. I'd like to open it up if anybody wants to have any questions, reflections, comments in the few minutes that we have.
Very nice class, Dayal Gauranga Prabhu. I really like the point that you made that being perfect doesn't mean I'm butchering it. I'm sorry. Doesn't mean not making material mistakes. It just means doing our best in devotional service and giving it all to Krishna. I really like that point. So we shouldn't think of ourselves as we're spotless and never commit any mistake. We should be humble.
Yeah, the perfect in devotion, that even in our mistakes, I'm going to allow them to bring me closer to Krishna.
Yeah. Jeffrey Eckler Prabhu.
Yes, thank you for the class, though. The point that you made from Bhagavad Gita about the verse, he who commits the abominable act should be considered saintly. I've always stumbled on that verse, and your explanation was clarifying today. And just like a lot of other realizations I've had, it's not so much about changing my material perspective or expecting another to change their material behavior, but changing my mind and the way that I view things is really the key. I find a lot of times to successful and happy life is really figuring out my dharmic position and not trying to understand or worse, judge someone else's dharmic position. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate that. I'm grateful for you. Andrea wanted to say something.
Hare Krishna, dear Dayal Gauranga Prabhu. Thank you so much for the class. And thank you for, just as an aside, for the work that you do in doing the men's group with the on Wednesdays that my husband has been attending. It's amazing to see. Like, I love when he shares quotes from it or realizations, obviously protecting the confidentiality of the people in the group, but just It's so important. And I think it goes to your point about the association and how important it is, to have that. And I also really appreciate the point that you made about not holding grudges or blaming others, and instead using it as a reminder to thank Krishna for having an opportunity to take shelter of him, and also to thank Krishna for the lesson of whatever that circumstance is. And to go on like what Jeffrey said, I've also had that shift, that there's a lot of things that haven't changed in my life, but it's just the way that I see the circumstances that come my way, and seeing, like you said, Krishna is our well-wisher, and anything that's coming my way, it's because he's sending it as a benefit, like it will benefit me. And seeing it that way is just such an amazing shift that there's a lot less anxiety in my life with it. I'm not saying that I'm anxiety free, because anybody that knows me, I'm a little bit of a worrywart, but it's a lot less than before. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I'm grateful for you, for your comments, and for your reflections. So both Jeffrey and Andrea, I think that what I'm taking away and gleaming from you guys is that we get to choose the experience that I have in my spiritual life. I was having a conversation with somebody, and we're talking about criticism and like why it's not good to criticize other people. And at the end of the day, I was just thinking, like, I don't like the way I feel when I criticize other people. Like, how about that for a reason? Like, I just don't like the way I feel when I criticize people at the end of the day. You could talk about, well, some people need to be corrected and this and that and the other and all of that's there, but it's just like, I don't like the way I feel when I criticize other people. I don't like the way I feel when I'm blaming other people for how I am. I don't like the way I feel, like Jeffrey said, like changing my mind. Like, I don't like the way I feel when I play the victim. I don't like the way I feel when I, have all of these negative outlook. I don't like the way I feel when I'm envious of other people. And so why don't I just choose to feel differently? And that's not easy. There's a whole process. There's a lot that goes into that. I understand that. But at the end of the day, recognizing that it's my anger, it's my envy, it's my jealousy, it's my grudge, and I could choose to become willing to let it go. And once I become willing to let it go, then I can actually turn it over to Krishna and ask him to start to help me out with it. And it's a very different prayer to actually say, Krishna, I'm taking full ownership for my experience of life, and I want to change my perspective, and how I view and see other people in the world. And then Krishna actually can really do work in us. I'm not asking Krishna to change my circumstances. I'm asking Krishna to change my perspectives. So I can experience life in a different way.
Yeah, Krishna is not pleased when we criticize, when we throw a tantrum, when we play victim. Krishna is not pleased by that. Prabhupada is not pleased by that. So let's not do that.
Yeah, Krishna's not pleased like that. And when I get to the point of only wanting Krishna's pleasure, then that'll be more relevant to me. But sometimes how much am I actually thinking about Krishna's pleasure and just thinking about my own comfort and experience in life? Even if I'm not able to get to the level of what pleases Krishna, I can just actually accept for myself, like, I'm not pleased. It's not good for me. I'm not happy. I'm not having a pleasant experience of life. And so, that becomes both of those things. Krishna's not pleased, nor is my soul satisfied.
Right.
So.
Yeah, ahoitaki apatiyata.
To completely satisfy the self. Yatma supersediti. Exactly. Well put, Ananda Vihariji. So thank you all so much. I imagine that the darshan is coming soon.
Yeah, darshan time.
Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Ananta Gaudiya Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Dayal Gauranga Prabhu making our hearts into butter. Ki jai. Hare Krishna. Turn your cameras on if you can, dear devotees. Krishna will take darshan. We'll take darshan of Krishna. Krishna will take a look at us. Nothing to hide.
We want to show you this place in the US. We only did 6 years. Aren't we gonna come to Giants? Dinner? Cool. Yeah, so we guys got one for him. So it's wonderful. I'm gonna bring it over. Maybe tomorrow. Man. Well, maybe tomorrow. I'll show you tomorrow. Cool. We were festival in Florida. But our first festival. This weekend we have a festival. We're working on a music festival. Oh, yeah. No, small one. The big one is not. But we got accepted into the electric forest in Michigan in June. Oh my God. There's 50,000 people. Yeah, right. Really awesome.
All right, welcome to the Afterglow, everybody. Darshan of devotees, Andrea, William, Mungi, Venetia, everybody. Thank you very much. Sundaranandaji, Justice, Scarlett, Amrita Kishori, Didi Bruce, Yogeshwari, Domi, Suzanne, Rupesh Kumar, the fifth, the Royal Prince, Rich Prabhu, Gail, Bhima Prabhu. Okay, Hare Krishna. Would anyone like to share? We can take one reflection. No, nothing to reflect. It's okay. It was a wonderful class, very deep. Dayal Gauranga is a very deep Vaishnava, always very hope-giving. You know, we screw up, we stumble, but then comes Dayal Gauranga with his class and we feel hopeful again.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can you hear me?
Yeah. William, yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I turned my camera off because I just wanted to share something in the class really touched me.
So we don't know it's you? You're gonna get really vulnerable?
It's me.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I'll turn the camera on. You see, wanted to share that I felt like I sometimes it's directed right towards you. I'm like, oh my Krishna, wow, they like hit home. So I was like, I was feeling bad because I couldn't associate with devotees, and I was like, I was trying hard. I was praying to Krishna, please send me some devotees. I want to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with devotees. I don't want to chant online. I want to be around devotees. So Adi suggested the Harinam. And ever since he suggested, I was at first, oh my God, I'm not going to dance. I got to sit down because my back, I'm like, oh my goodness. But I tried it, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. Ever since I've done that, I've grown closer and closer to Krishna. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for class.
Yeah, William Prabhu. My wife told me that she saw you on Harinam. She said, I saw William Prabhu. And so wonderful. And you were chatting with another devotee. Krishna will grant the desire that we have for spiritual life. Krishna will grant that desire. For sure. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Seek the association of the devotees, and it will be granted one way or another. Hare Krishna. Love you all.